So what we always do first is we acknowledge the original. So it's just basically our acknowledgement. We acknowledge the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if
Very
you
nice.
can please do us the honors of introducing yourself and tell us about your remarkable work.
Okay, well, my name is Denise M. Hall, and I don't know how remarkable the work is, but I really, over the past few years, really tried to work at seeing how I can answer the question of how can I help to build my community. I think that one of the things that we need to maybe do better at in the Black community is to come together. There's a lot of silos happening, everyone trying to be their own CEO, and there's strength in numbers. And so my goal is to see how we can connect people together so that we can work together toward the common goals, because ultimately it doesn't matter what sector you're in, it doesn't matter what area you're in. We have common issues as Black people, and the reality is we need to work together to solve it. So I have had the privilege of working for CIBC for the past few years, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had in that capacity. And I've also had the opportunity to work with the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals, which I know you guys have interviewed some of our members before, so your audience might be familiar with the organization. And that organization, I'm head of the advisory board currently. And the goal is really just to connect the Black professionals with corporate Canada. And I think it's also important for us to come together. So one of the reasons why I joined that organization was the first time I walked into a room at an event and saw like a sea of people who look like me, who were not, in the media for something negative. They are people who have it, well, at least they look like they have it together. They're in a professional environment. They're not, all the negative connotations that the media portrays us to be. Being in a room like that was very inspiring. And so I encourage people to have that opportunity to connect with other Black professionals, regardless of what industry you're in. That was probably a lot, and probably.
Oh, no, that's amazing. You want to give everybody a full understanding of what you do, and all of that is remarkable. We stand by that for sure. And could you articulate your personal mission and vision for us?
I think that would be my personal mission and vision, is just to connect the Black community together and see how we can work together to uplift ourselves. It's important for us to have allies to help with that process as well, because we didn't get here by ourselves. But we do have to have ownership, and ultimately this affects us, so we need to come together as an organization. And there's so many great organizations that are doing so many great things, and we don't hear about it. We don't know, and so we don't have the opportunity to support those organizations and help build them up, because building them up brings our community together and builds our community up. So that is, I would say, my personal mission and vision is to bring people together to strengthen the community.
Absolutely. That is very important and long overdue. Absolutely. I know it's not going to be an overnight thing, but trust me, it's like a puzzle. I always refer back to a puzzle because it's so true. Every piece, as long as there's that connection, then we're building, we're making
Yes.
progress.
Yeah.
And so even if it's not in our lifetime, we're still setting a foundation.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's important. So that's great. And so similar, I guess, would be like, what inspires you about your work?
I think what inspires me is all of the great individuals that I get to meet, there are so many great leaders across our community and so many people doing such important work, and people who really have a heart for the community. You get in some spaces and some people are really about themselves and how they can make themselves look better, how they can get that promotion, or how they can advance themselves. But we are blessed to have a lot of really great leaders within our community who really put themselves on the line, all the time to make sure that our community is better. I think of the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, who is such an amazing lady. And she's worked so hard over her years to really uplift and support our community, particularly in the space of women. And it is because of her that we even can have a Black History Month, which is so important. I think of Justice Donald McLeod and the work that he does, that, to support even within and outside of the justice system in order to strengthen our community from that aspect. And I mean, there are dozens of names that I can call of people who are just quietly doing the work. And, some of them are not even getting the acknowledgement, but they're doing the work, whatever they can, to support our community. And I think that's really important.
Definitely, you definitely mentioned some powerhouses, and that's how I think of them. They're a fully charged battery that never
Yes.
never dies.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's our job to plug into that battery and plug the youth in. Because I think when you talk about, and I can relate. I've done a lot of work in the Jane and Finch community as well, and really, throughout the years. And I can relate that you have some that you can tell that are really for community, and some are just looking for badges and stickers,
Yeah.
And so we have to, we're at a time now where we have to decipher those and divide them, in the sense, okay, this is who I know I can work with. These are the ones, I don't know, right? So,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, time is of essence. Our youth, the whole, what Gen Z is different, it's
Yes.
totally.
Yeah.
We start with powerhouses, like these kings and queens that are before us, and they're still living.
Yes.
Mind you.
Give them their flowers while they're living. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And to your point, it's important for us to plug in and to, be able to, because our plugging in helps strengthen what they do. And then it also helps us because, I mean, we have to build the generation so that, God forbid anything happens, this work
Right.
doesn't die with them. We have to be able to continue it on.
Exactly. Beautiful. So, what challenges or barriers have you faced, and how did you work to overcome them?
I think working in corporate Canada, there are a lot of barriers, which I'm sure Black professionals everywhere can echo. I was just in an event last week where we were talking about the subtleties of, the microaggressions that happen here in Canada. I did go to school in the States, and so I always say that racism and things like that in the States, I almost prefer it because it's very open. People, they are just going to tell you straight, you're not getting this job, we don't like you because you're Black. And in Canada, people see your faces and magically doors are closed and positions are filled, and you're trying to get in, you're trying to get ahead, and you can't because strictly based on the color of your skin. And I'm one of my pet peeves is really the woke ally who thinks that they know better than you about your experience and then can tell you all about what you need to do, instead of just being the support and sponsorship that's needed, to help lift up our community. If you want to be an ally, you want to help the Black community, then be a voice of helpfulness to other people in your community. Do what you can to help lift us up, because it's not spaces where we have a whole lot of seats at the table. And so do what you can to open up the seats and to support people. So I did a speech a couple of years ago on microaggressions of Black hair, and for Black women, it's such a problem, to be able to come to work and to just wear your hair and not have people have big reactions, and, you know, not have people like, you know, comment and want to touch your hair and pet you and all that kind of stuff, you know, having to deal with that all the time. Carlin Purcell, who's an amazing speaker, if you've ever had the chance to hear her, she talks about the emotional tax that people have within corporate Canada. And I think sometimes we don't even realize the toll that it takes on us, and how much it affects us in our day-to-day being. Just, you know, showing up at the office and, you know, having to smile with people who are, you know, actively trying to keep you down in a very gaslighty way that makes you wonder, did I imagine that? Or, you know, is it actually happening? So I think that these are challenges that Black professionals everywhere experience. And in terms of overcoming, some of it is just calling it out. Because whether it's conscious or unconscious, it's something that needs to be addressed, you know. And when I did my speech to my team a few years ago about the microaggressions of Black hair, it was, there was stunned silence. Like, I think some of them had never heard that before. And I got a lot of apologetic emails and text messages and stuff afterwards from people. And there's been a concerted effort, which makes it easier to come to work. You know, it helps to ease that emotional tax. And there are a dozen other, you know, things, whether it be, you know, what we eat or how we dress, or, you know, things that people have to deal with on a daily basis, or even just the way things are perceived. You know, sometimes you say something and somebody decides that you're angry, you know, or you be forceful. And if a white person says it, then they're forceful. And if you say it, you're rude, you know. So having to deal with things like that are difficult. And I think that is also another reason to come together, because I think we learn from each other on tips on how we can support each other, or ways that we can deal with situations like that.
Oh, my sister, you said so much. Like, where do I start? You know, it's so true. You know, I lived in America myself for 10 years, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm the same way. I'd rather somebody tell me in my face than you smiling and, oh, you know,
You know where you
sorry.
stand. Yeah, you know where you
Yes.
stand. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And me and I'm with SETSI, we also did also similar on microaggression, anti-Black racism, presentations with different organizations. And there was one that we were saying that it was a true story of a woman who was in the hospital. She had braids like mine, and you know how tap the head because it's itchy. So she was in the hospital, and they thought that she was going crazy. They were actually going to call the psych ward on her to come and take her away because they thought that she was going crazy. And it's like, oh, no, no, no. You know, I think it was a Black nurse that had to stop them and say, no, her scalp is just itchy. You know what I mean? So, you know, these are the things that have to be addressed, because if we're going to continue to work in these environments, you know, we're not going to accept less at this point. We are going to stand our ground and to say who we are, how we wear our hair, how we are. This is just who we are, you know, as natural born beings, you know, and we should be accepted accordingly. So,
Yeah. And
whew,
stories like that are really, like, that really underscores the importance of representation. Because if that
yes,
Black nurse wasn't there, that person was
yes,
going to end up in a psych ward. And how damaging that would have been to their mental health and their physical health, you know,
that's right.
just because she was patting her head and somebody who did not understand the culture didn't
Yes,
know, you know. So it's so important for us to be represented at various levels. And I find we are represented really at low levels, but we're not represented enough at levels where it matters. You know, people who are making decisions, we're not represented enough at those levels. And it becomes a problem with situations like this.
100%, 100%. So that's definitely a work in progress for sure. And how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
I feel hopeful. I think that we're having more and more events where we're coming together. I think that there is, even as I attend various events across Toronto and hear different things that are happening, I know that there's work being done at the UN level in order to extend the decade of Black people or people of Black descent. And I think work like that is important. And I think it's important for us to know about that kind of work that's happening. There's a lot of organizations that are working behind the scenes on our behalf in terms of government and other things, and we don't know the work that they're doing. But it's happening. And I think it's important for us to learn about what they're doing and see how we can come on board to support. And I get it. There's some people who, it's a lot. It's emotionally taxing to have to feel like you are the support for the Black community. But, as the saying goes, many hands make work light. So the more of us who can come on board and help to support, the less of a burden it becomes on the few who are doing it for everyone.
100% agree. There's that burnout, but like you said, many hands make work light, and helps with our mental health as well too, because it is a battle. It is a mental, physical, spiritual battle that we go through on a daily basis. So the more the merrier, that are all on the same trajectory, the same mindset, Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you?
I think I think the ultimate goal is to really just keep toiling away. As you said at the beginning, like, this is not something that's going to change overnight. And it, quite frankly, probably won't even change in my lifetime. So it's constant work. It's constantly trying to find and do these small changes that that impact and make a difference for the generations that are coming behind us. But in terms of what does success look like, I mean, ultimately, in the ultimate utopia, it would be peace and harmony for everybody, and everyone comes together and everyone supports each other. Maybe not a realistic goal, but I think that, as we come together and we work together towards that ultimate goal, things will change, things do change. It just takes time. And, sometimes you look at various things that are happening around the world and you think, setbacks are happening. We're not moving forward. You take 2 steps forward and you're taking 10 steps back. And it feels like an uphill battle. But, you just have to keep plodding along, and you do what you can to brighten the corner where you are. And I think if I might not be able to change the world, but maybe I can help one person in terms of their career journey, or maybe I can help one person in terms of getting the resources that they need to have a better life. So I think ultimately my goal is just to do what I can to help support, and hope that things will get better.
Absolutely. And a lot of people say that the veil is finally being lifted at this time. So,
Yes.
The ones whose eyes are opened, we do have a responsibility within the community to also, even if it's just one, one person to really inspire them and see where they could also inspire and keep it moving. That is so critical in this time, because they say time is moving fast, or a lot of things are happening, a lot of changes. People are feeling it within themselves too, so people like yourself and, the ones that really can do the work and inspire the next generation, like you said, it might not be our lifetime, but guess what? It's all in that progressionary work, right?
Yeah. And knowledge is power, right? So even just as you said, as people's eyes are being opened and, people are learning more information, it helps to move things forward, even if it's just to broaden people's knowledge about what's happening.
Absolutely. Very good. So last question is, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action at this time?
I think if I had to have a closing thought, it would just be that we just need to really come together as a community. I think that is my ultimate goal, is that, how can we make meaningful connections? How can we support and uplift each other? If you have the means and the opportunity to help somebody, don't think of it as not my problem. The weakest in our community should become a problem for all of us, and we saw that with the African asylum seekers who were on the street. And a lot of people really leaped into action to help. And if they had stood aside and just said, this is the government's problem, those people would still be on the street. So it's important for us to come together so that we can affect change for our community.
Absolutely. I remember that totally. And, sometimes I say to myself, pain brings progress for some reason.
Yes.
Like, it's like you go through certain pains but you learn from it. And I think that's where the progression happens. So it's like when you cut yourself, the body automatically knows to create that barrier, that scab, that protection. And then that's going to have you to remember, oh, I won't do that again. You know what I mean? That's is automatically to the brain to heal, to move on. Let's do something about, So these are the steps that we need to take as a community. Absolutely. And people like you, oh, Denise, trust me, we are on a good trajectory of improvement within the community for our babies to know about themselves and know how beautiful their hair is, know how beautiful they are, their skin, everything. And on, generation after generation. So, I really appreciate it on behalf of SETSI. We thank you so much. Again, we'll be on the YouTube SETSI channel. And I hope everyone has an opportunity to listen, to write notes, get in contact, all of that with you. And we'll put the information down. Want to get in contact with you. All right. So we will end the way that we began, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Denise, once again, on behalf of SETSI and myself, thank you so much for participating, and I wish you all the success and hope to see you in person or virtual again.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity.
All right, dear. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.